Here's my ID. Here's my audience. Imagine this. You're on the way home from work, and all of a sudden you see blue lights flash up behind you. Out of confusion, you turn around, put your hands up, not sure what's going on. An officer steps out and asks you, where are you going and where are you headed? And before you even have a chance to answer his questions, he puts your hands up against the wall and starts patting you down. You ask, Officer, am I under arrest? And then he says, No, I was just making sure you weren't carrying any contraband. Have a nice day. You've just been stopped and frisked. Why? Because you were in the wrong neighborhood with the wrong skin color. This happens to thousands of minorities year after year, and something needs to be done about this. And a lot of times it can be considered justifiable. Although the stop and frisk method may not affect a lot of you personally, it could directly affect someone you know, your friends, your neighbors, your co-workers, and etc. And today I'm here to tell you about what the stop and frisk originally was, what it is turned into, and how police all around the country could potentially start being held responsible for their actions. According to the book Stop and Frisk Legal Perspectives, Strategic Thinking, and Tactical Procedures in 2017, the stop and frisk method was originally made to fight crime in communities and to make communities safer. Its original purpose was to be a non-intrusive stop of a suspect by police. The Fourth Amendment requires, according to the Taylor Law Company in 2012, that before stopping a suspect, police must have real suspicion that a crime has been, is being, or is about to be committed. However, this method, being so broad and giving police a lot of power, can be destined to be taken advantage of. According to the book Stop and Frisk, The Use and Abuse of a Controversial Policing Tactic in 2016, the stop and frisk method would go on to become a central tactic in modern day policing, particularly by the New York City Police Department and implemented by Mayor Michael Bloomberg. The book also mentions that by 2011, the NYPD recorded 685,000 stop and frisk interactions with citizens, far more than any other city in the entire United States. Also, according to Corey Doctor of BoingBoing.net in 2016, nearly 90% of all stops in Chicago in 2015 were of either African American or Hispanic males and females. According to the Stop and Frisk Handbook in 2012, the stop and frisk method became much more regulated by the NYPD after the Floyd versus New York City case, which challenged the New York City's police department in using this controversial tactic, and it ended up limiting the number of racial profiling and unconstitutional frisk by the New York City Police Department of New York City's minorities. Approximately 85% of the stops were either of African American and Latino men, or men and women, and despite the fact that these groups only make up 52% of the city's entire population. Now, after stopping a suspect, the NYPD must fill out these UF 250 forms that and with these UF 250 forms, they have to say, was the person outside in transit? Were they when the housing? Were they walking? Were they carrying objects? What circumstances was led to the stop? Were they carrying objects in plain view? Did they fit a description of someone who had an arrest warrant out for them? Were they wearing clothes disguised as commonly used in commission of a crime? They have to say their sex, their race, their age, their height, their weight. And basically it just keeps police accountable for who they're stopping and why they're stopping them. Now, according to the observatory in 2012, some say that the UF 250 forms are still going too far because they're keeping records on innocent people that is still in violation of their policy. They say that the UF 250 is flawed because a quote unquote suspicious bulge slash object could be a person's keys or wallet lumping out of their pockets that can be miscued as a gun, and And quote unquote actions indicative of acting as a lookout could just be somebody standing on the side of the street waiting for one of their friends to come pick them up. However, and that is true. This, like any other policy or any other idea, it does have its ups and downs. It has its goods and bads. And stop, although you can't stop racial profiling 100%, you have to do what you can in order to stop what you can stop. We must push that these UF-250 form not only be put in effect in New York City and places in like Chicago and New York City and San Francisco and cities with lots of high rates of corruption and robbery and stuff, but in every place that at every state that allows the stop and frisk method. In order to do this, we must push on our lawmakers, both local and national, that we must stop all this madness, and we can do that by emailing them, calling them, mailing them, whatever it takes to stop all this corruption. Thank y'all for listening to my speech. And does anyone have any questions?
Yes, I do.
Okay, go ahead.
Is stop and frisk allowed in South Carolina?
The stop and frisk method is allowed in South Carolina in the form of Terry stops. Back in the 60s, there was a case where it was John Terry versus the city of Ohio, and the case ruled that John Terry was a man who was stopped and frisked by police, and they ended up finding out that there was a warrant out for someone who was a black male around his height, around his size, and that there was a call out for it. So after they stopped him, they had a reasonable suspicion. So in the state of South Carolina, if you have reasonable suspicion, you can stop somebody, but reasonable suspicion can be taken as anything, and these forms would still hold police more accountable. Any other questions?
Do you personally know anyone who's been stopped and frisked?
Yes, I do. He was walking down the road. They said that he looked suspicious. He was just in a neighborhood. They didn't know what he was doing, and just like that, he was stopped and frisked. There was no further explanations, and that could have been avoided if the police would have needed a probable cause with these UF-250 forms or something like that.
Was he taken to jail?
He was not. No arrests were made.
So they found there was no.
No arrest. All right. Thank y'all.